Hey guys, Level Cap here, and it's getting to that time of year when I send DICE my Battlefield 2018 wish list. These are the features and things I would like added to the next Battlefield game, regardless of what theater of war or conflict era the game takes place in. Now, if you've been following Reddit recently, you'll know that there was a leak or a potential leak about what the next Battlefield game is. And this leak comes from a YouTuber who also leaked Battlefield 1 with very, very accurate details. In fact, he had details that the Game Changers didn't have, which means he definitely had an inside source on the dev team giving him information. So that definitely gives him a lot of credibility with this leak about the next Battlefield game being Battlefield Bad Company 3 that revolves around the Vietnam and Cold War era. Now, I'm a little bit more skeptical about taking this guy at his word right away, just because I have a few sources inside who have said that this is actually incorrect. Now, whether or not these sources are trying to throw me off the trail is unclear, but personally, I just don't believe that they are. So where does that leave us? Well, we're in the leak season for the next Battlefield game. We're probably going to be getting a whole bunch of different leaks about what the next Battlefield game is. Some will be true, some will be false. It's going to be really hard to determine what is or isn't true. I'll just leave it at whatever the next Battlefield game is. My requests for it aren't really going to change depending on the theme of the game. Alright, let's start things off with my first request that is kind of broad, but we'll get more specific with it. And the theme of that request is less is more. Battlefield games since Battlefield 3 and even during Battlefield 3's DLC have added a lot of unnecessary bloat to the game that has definitely detracted from the gameplay. You could take a look at Battlefield 3's AC-130 DLC that kind of ruined some of those maps or some of those modes during the gameplay. You could take a look at Battlefield 4's UCAV, SUAV, XM25, all these kinds of hokey weapons that could kill you around corners or kill you without direct line of sight. And then you take Battlefield 1, which has got airburst mortars, 50 different kinds of grenades, obviously not 50, but you get the point. Basically, they add a lot of stuff to the game to try and sell it better. You know, when you see a whole bunch of different items and variety, it does look attractive at first, and it does make for good marketing. Of course, veterans of the Battlefield franchise know that many of these added gadgets don't actually improve the gameplay and often detract from it. So I would request that DICE, instead of adding as much junk to the game as possible, really focuses on and refines some core key elements of the game, and then saves some of the extra kind of wonky or hokey items for Battlefield pickups. Remember Battlefield 4 when you could pick up awesome sniper rifles that had one-shot kills, but it was okay because they were pickups within the game world and not everybody had them? I would hope that DICE takes this philosophy moving forward with the game and puts things like UCAV type weapons or mortars or XM25s, any sort of crazy weird gadget that they want to put in the game, and have it be more of a Battlefield pickup rather than something that half of the server can run around with. I think it'll be ultimately easier to balance the game if DICE takes this approach with wonky gadgets. In addition to that, I would say focus on core game modes. Rather than feeling obligated to add a new game mode with each DLC and each expansion, maybe focus on the core game modes and making sure that those game modes play out incredibly well in each map. The more game modes you add to any DLC or any map, the harder it becomes to balance and the less time you have to focus on each individual game mode and refine it. Rather than having 10 mediocre game modes, I would rather have 4 really well refined and well balanced game modes, and I think I would get much more longevity out of Battlefield at the end of the day. Now, let's talk about gunplay and weapon mechanics. This is one of the biggest subjects because there was such a big transition from Battlefield 3, Battlefield Hardline, Battlefield 4, similar gunplay mechanics, to Battlefield 1, which pretty much upended everything. A lot of people didn't like it, and frankly, many of the hardcore players that I know left the franchise with Battlefield 1 and were like, you know what, I'll come take a look when the next modern Battlefield game comes out and see what the weapon mechanics are like then. I would like to see a return, of course, to sort of the Battlefield 4 way of balancing weapons, but maybe with an added effect. Now, I've come to really enjoy the fact that PUBG makes me decide whether or not I want to have my gun on full auto or semi-auto. At semi-automatic, the guns are much more accurate and easy to use at further ranges like 100 plus meters, and of course on full auto you need the damage per second to deal with players in close quarters. This is an interesting and fun mechanic, and it only works because of the way that they've designed the weapons in the game to be highly realistic. I think it would be very cool if the Battlefield franchise incorporated even more realistic weapon handling mechanics and made you really think between switching your gun between semi-auto and full auto, which was never a decision in Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, or Battlefield Hardline. Despite that they allowed you to switch your weapon between its firing modes, there was never a reason to go into semi-auto on a full auto weapon. Now, despite my grievances with the weapon balance system for Battlefield 1, BF1 did add a lot of mechanics that I would like to see carried over into the next Battlefield title. Things that I really enjoyed were no mini-map spotting when firing your weapon. This was something that just became so second nature in the other Battlefield games, where all you would do is look at your mini-map when you heard gunfire and figure out exactly where your opponent was. It sort of added that suppressor mechanic to the game, but ultimately I think this really detracted from the gameplay, and I hope the new version that BF1 has implemented carries over into the next title. I also appreciated the removal of the defensive perk, the removal of spawn beacons, which may or may not be controversial, but I think it helps speed up the gameplay and avoid some of the easy ways to exploit the spawn beacon in game, and also the removal of server customization when it came to instant vehicle spawn. Oh my god, did that ruin so many servers for me in Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Thank God those things are gone. I hope they never come back. Now, other mechanics that were added to Battlefield 1 that I pray do not carry over into future Battlefield titles, my number one is self-repairing tanks. Oh my god, the teamwork in tanks was so much better in previous Battlefield games. They went down faster, they required more teamwork to keep alive, and you couldn't repair them from the freaking inside. You had to get out. There was sort of a risk-reward element there. I hope self-repairing, internal repairing tanks goes away in future Battlefield games for good. Also, the complete lack of viable anti-air weapons on infantry really allows air to dominate heavily in certain maps, and I hope good anti-air weapons come back that infantry can carry around with them in the future game. Mortars have probably been one of my least favorite things in all Battlefield games. Fortunately, in previous games they nerfed them pretty heavily, so people just didn't use them very much. In Battlefield 1 they nerfed it and then brought it back. Mortars are just all over the place. They're very easy to get kills with and extremely annoying on certain game modes. I honestly wouldn't mind if mortars were just gone from the game or made Battlefield pickups so only one or two people could have them at a time. Then of course there's the legendary Battlefield 1 grenade spam. The grenade spam has been bad in every single Battlefield game. Who are we kidding? Somehow it got worse in Battlefield 1. I mean, I know how it got worse. I'm just wondering why the heck it got worse. Like, why did the devs make grenades easier to use and more powerful and more prevalent? So basically, the timing system on grenades was changed completely in Battlefield 1. Rather than it being a set timer once you threw it, it now becomes a smart grenade that has a timer that activates once the grenade comes to a resting position, allowing you to throw it halfway across the map and get some easy kills with it. As someone who tries to dodge a grenade, once you see that grenade indicator, chances are you won't be able to escape the blast radius without at least taking some damage. This mechanic is terrible in my opinion. Grenades in previous games were much more effective at getting people to move out from behind cover, where you could then gun them down. Weapons, firearms were the primary method of killing enemies, and that really seems to have taken a big shift in Battlefield 1. I hope they shift it back, like as far back as they possibly can for the next Battlefield game. Now, two things that I would like to see gone from the franchise that probably will never go away now that they've been added are the melee system and the suppression system. The melee system is auto lock on, it's quick time animation bullshit, it doesn't require any skill. Veterans of the franchise don't like it. I think most people would prefer a Counter-Strike style system that required you to actually aim and rewarded you with more damage depending on where your melee strike hit the opponent on the body, rather than this just auto lock on system. And then of course suppression. DICE has been trying to justify their suppression mechanics for years and trying to balance it interestingly within the gunplay. Honestly, nobody likes it. I would be so happy if suppression was maybe just a visual thing, a little bit of blurring around the edges of the screen. fine, but affecting my actual accuracy and performance, oh my god, in a sniper duel, are you kidding me? It's ridiculous. It makes no sense to me. But again, these two things I imagine will stay in the franchise for a long time, despite the endless complaints from franchise veterans. When it comes to the scoring system of Battlefield 1, I would like to see it either go back to the way things were before, or try and understand the scoring mechanics in Battlefield better, and what actions actually cause players to win the game. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we want a scoring system that rewards players more for having a bigger impact on the end goal of the game. If I contributed the most to actually winning the game at the end of the day, I should get the highest score, right? In theory. Unfortunately, though, the way that the current scoring system works is that it emphasizes a huge amount on just basic, simplistic gameplay mechanics like distributing ammo and health, rewarding huge amounts of points for something that requires relatively little skill. If you know the scoring system in Battlefield 1, it's very easy to exploit it and not necessarily have to be a great player to get on top of the scoreboard. I would love for DICE to reevaluate their entire scoring mechanics in the game and maybe look at the fact that, hey, guess what? Getting a kill is actually often a lot more valuable than throwing out an ammo pack to another player. I get it, the gimme ammo meme has been around forever, but you know what? When I kill a player on the battlefield, that's stopping them from capping a point, it's potentially saving a teammate, it's preventing any of his squad mates from spawning on him, it's preventing him from relaying intel to his teammates. Honestly, the list of benefits from killing another player in the game are endless, and yet DICE thinks that throwing out some ammo to some guy who's got 50% of his ammo left is worth just about the same amount of points as killing another player. I mean, there's just things about the current scoring system that just rub me the wrong way, and I think Battlefield 1 has pushed it way too far in the wrong direction. Again, I could go on and on about the nuanced problems of the scoring system, but that's an entire video within itself. I would just like to see the next Battlefield game not copy and paste the current scoring system over and maybe reevaluate things from the ground up and try and decide what should be worth a lot of points and what should be worth a little points. Now, it is kind of funny calling this a wish list because most of my wishes are, please don't add this to the game, or make this go back to the way it used to be. But I gotta say that is what my wish list is for the next Battlefield title. Battlefield 3 and BF4 were great games. They weren't flawless, they had plenty of problems with them, many problems which DICE worked on for a long time to iron out, and at the end of the day, the games were really fun, and they're still really fun to go back to. Battlefield 1 is one of those games that I don't know how much I'm going to go back to it once the next Battlefield title comes out, if at all. Really, I just want to help DICE find their way back to that golden Battlefield formula, the one that made me fall in love with Battlefield 3 and carried many of the same features over into Battlefield 4. These are the things that I would like to see return to the Battlefield franchise. I think many things in those games appealed to the tactical first-person shooter fan, and with Battlefield 1 we've shied away from it in a much bigger way, and the industry has reacted to it. Since then, a lot of tactical shooters have popped up and become incredibly popular. The big question on my mind, of course, is DICE going to try and appeal more to the tactical shooter market with their next title, or are they going to go in the more arcadey direction with less of an emphasis on skill and more of an emphasis on visual flair? We'll have to wait and see what DICE decides to do at the end of the day, but if you guys agree with me, let me know in the comments down below. If you disagree, again, let me know in the comments down below. Be respectful, and I want to hear what everybody thinks about what they would like to see in the next Battlefield title. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.